What's up, guys? Welcome to the second take. I'm Zach. I'm also going to be Jonah today. He's got a busy week, some exams coming up today, and packing and a bunch of other stuff. So it's just going to be a quick one, probably 10-15 minutes today. I'm going to give you our NFL picks, and then I'm also going to talk a little bit about college football playoff rankings and where we stand with that, since that college football season's winding down pretty quickly here. And then next week we'll be back to normal with our regular shows. So to start off for football, for the NFL, we're going to pick our usual 4 games and then a upset and a lock. Excuse me. One of the first games we're going to pick is going to be the Cardinals against the Vikings. The Cardinals right now stand at 4-4-1. The Vikings at 5-4, both of which would not be in the playoffs if they ended today. So obviously, two teams that we thought were going to be pretty good to start the year. Vikings have lost 4 straight. Cardinals are back and forth here and there. So this game is in Minnesota. It's a 1 o'clock game. And the Vikings are actually favorites, believe it or not. So Jonah and I are both going to pick the Cardinals here. We think the Cardinals are just better than the Vikings. Vikings lost 4 straight, as I said. Their offense looks pretty bad. Defense doesn't look that great either right now, and the Cardinals, I think, are just much better all around. So the next game we're going to go into is Eagles and Seahawks, 4:25 game in Seattle. Seahawks are favored by 6.5. A lot of that has to do with being the home team. They're pretty tough at home. So Jonah and I are both going with the Seahawks here also. They look really good after that win against the Patriots, which I know I said I thought that was going to happen, but never ended up pulling the trigger on the pick. I do think that this Seattle team is going to probably represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, and I really could see them playing the Patriots in a rematch of last week. So I think they're going to start to catch a little groove here. They also are just released Christine Michael, who is actually their leading rusher, and are going to roll with C.J. Procise and Thomas Rawls, who's going to be back this week. And Philly, Carson Wentz is still too young and unseasoned to really put fear in the Seattle defense. I think they're going to have a good time playing against that Philly offense. So the next game we're going to go to is the Sunday night game, Packers and Redskins. This game's going to be in Washington. The Redskins are 3-point favorites. The Packers are another team like the Vikings that are struggling a bunch. So much so that the Lions are actually leading that division now, which I know pretty much nobody saw coming. The Redskins are kind of playing well. They're a funny team to try to decipher. Sometimes they play well, sometimes they play horrendously bad. But they just came off a decent win against Minnesota. Then the week before that, they tied Cincinnati and lost to Detroit, so they're all over the place. The Packers are coming off 3 straight losses to Tennessee, Indianapolis, and Atlanta. Probably none of those would be considered good losses. So they're having some big-time problems. Jonah's going to stick with the Packers because he thinks that Aaron Rodgers is going to pull it out here at least one time. And I'm going to go with the Redskins. Just because the Redskins are playing well enough right now that I think that they can beat the Packers, especially when Aaron Rodgers isn't at his best. So that's our one of our disagreements. We're going to the Monday night game now. Also, the Texans against the Raiders. This game is played in Mexico City. Raiders are 5.5-point favorites. I think that's a little high. I think this is going to be a close, tough, hard-fought game. However, we both are going to go with the Raiders. I cannot stand the Texans. I think they're extremely overrated. Jonah's jumping off the ship too, and I'm a big fan of this Raiders team. So the offensive firepower of the Raiders, that great offensive line, and the improving defense by the week, I think is a really good combination, and I hope that they can keep this train rolling and looking really good rolling into the postseason. So now for our locks. This one's probably pretty easy for most people to guess, but we're going to go with Pittsburgh, who's at 4-5 over the 0-10 Cleveland Browns. Browns are desperately looking for a win, and we cannot stand picking division games for this, but this seems almost too easy to call, which obviously puts some concern in my mind. But I don't know. I don't think the Steelers are the greatest team, and I don't think they are nearly as good as they should be this year. But I also don't think they're anywhere near as bad as the Browns, and I don't think that they should lose this game even a little bit. Jonah's upset is going to be the Buccaneers over the Chiefs in Kansas City. Kansas City's favored by 7.5. That's going to be a tough one for the Bucs. I think the Chiefs have just won 5 straight, like the classic Kansas City where they start out kind of slow and then get rolling. I think the Chiefs are going to win that one big, but Jonah's going with the Bucs. And then I'm going to go with the Jags over the Lions. Jaguars on the road, underdogs by 6.5 points, but I still, for some reason, believe in the Jaguars. The Lions' defense isn't that great, so maybe the Jags' offense can get going here. But like I said, the Lions are leading that division in the NFC North, so they have a lot to play for as well. So those are our NFL picks this week. Lastly, I'm just going to go talk a little bit about the college football playoff. So I think this is our third set of rankings has been released. We have Alabama at 1, Ohio State at 2, Michigan at 3, Clemson at 4. This is after last week when we saw Clemson go down at home against Pitt. We saw Michigan go down on the road at Iowa. And we saw Washington go down at home against USC. Now, those 3 losses, I personally thought USC was going to kill Washington. I didn't think Washington was that good to begin with. And second, USC is on such a roll right now. I didn't think that was going to be a very favorable game for Washington. So that loss is acceptable to me. Michigan then went on the road against Iowa. Iowa's a really tough place to play. They have all of their players from last year pretty much of a team that was in the college football playoff, I think 1 week before the final standings were released. Just lost the Big Ten championship to Ohio State, so that's why they didn't make it. But yeah, I mean, they're really good. I think Iowa is really good. I had Iowa picked to not win that game, but at least cover the spread. So that loss is okay as well. But Clemson's is the one that really gets me. At home against a Pittsburgh team, they allow Pittsburgh's quarterback to throw for 5 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson throws for 570 yards, and they still lose. Kind of scary. However, they still find themselves in the playoff. Coming in as of yesterday, they were 1 spot ahead of Louisville. Louisville last night just suffered a big loss at Houston. They got absolutely blown out, lost by 26. So that pretty much ends Louisville's season there. So now we'll have those 4 teams, and then we're going to be looking at Wisconsin, Penn State, Oklahoma, and probably Colorado as 4 teams that have a chance to sneak in there. Washington too, if they hang around and win the Pac-12. But Alabama looks like a lock. They got to beat Auburn and win the SEC title, and that seems like it's definitely going to happen. Ohio State and Michigan are the 2-3. One of those is going to lose because they play each other next week. The question is, when that team loses, whoever it is, are they still going to get a top 4 spot? Considering you now have Louisville at 2 losses. Washington only has 1, but if Washington loses again to, say, Washington State the last week of the season, which is entirely possible, do you now value Michigan or Ohio State at a 2-loss team? Do you value them higher than Washington at a 2-loss team? Because after you look at Washington, you have Wisconsin, Penn State, Oklahoma, Colorado, all of which have 2 losses. And you also have to look at who's going to win the conference titles, because the winner of Ohio State, Michigan will win the conference title. Alabama will have a conference title, and Clemson should have the conference title. So then you see, can Washington win the conference title? And if they can, that will probably elevate them over the loser of Ohio State, Michigan, which would give you an Alabama, Ohio State / Michigan, Clemson, and then probably a Washington at the 4, which would give you Alabama against Washington, and I'm going to say Ohio State's going to beat Michigan. So for these purposes, Ohio State against Clemson as your 1-4, 2-3 matchup in the college football playoff. you also have teams hanging around back there. Like I mentioned, Oklahoma is a team I'm really looking at. No title game in that conference in the Big 12, but they do still get to play some good teams in West Virginia and Oklahoma State. West Virginia right now ranked 14th and Oklahoma State ranked 11th. If they can find a way to beat both those teams, I could see them making a huge jump up to that 5-6 spot. And now this is a team that started out, I think they're ranked ranked 5th to start the season, and went 1-2, and suffered some tough losses to Houston and Ohio State. Houston's loss was supposed to look good, but Houston took 2 bad losses here late in the season, which makes that loss look a little bit worse. But that huge win against Louisville helps Oklahoma's cause by making that Houston loss look a little bit better. And obviously losing to Ohio State is nothing to hang your hat about. So that team is a team to me that looks like it has a legit chance to get up there and make a lot of noise. And Wisconsin would be the other one. The only thing I fear with Wisconsin is that there's not enough left on the schedule, playing Purdue and Minnesota. That absolutely locks up 2 wins for them, in my opinion, but there's not enough to vault them over any other teams. And same said for Penn State, who faces Rutgers and Michigan State. Those 2 teams only have a combined 5 wins, so I don't see enough there to vault them either. So I really think we're looking at Alabama as a lock. Then we're going to look at the Ohio State-Michigan winner will be a lock also. So then we look at, let's say Ohio State wins that game, because I think that's definitely going to happen. So we have Alabama, Ohio State as your 1-2. Now we're looking at Michigan, Clemson. Let's say Clemson wins the ACC championship, so that'll lock Clemson in. That'll give them a 3. Now we're looking at Michigan, Washington, Wisconsin, and Oklahoma for that final spot. Now you have to look at the conference title, and of those teams, Washington would be the only one. Oklahoma has a chance too, but Washington, as of right now, looks like the team that would win the conference title. And if Oklahoma did as well, that would still probably put Oklahoma 1 stop behind Washington, because Washington would have 1 loss. So I would say it's going to be Alabama at the 1, Ohio State at the 2, Clemson at the 3, Washington at the 4, and then Oklahoma will be your first team out at the 5. To say the least, it's going to be an interesting last couple of weeks here. I think we have 2 weeks of the regular season left, and then we're going to have some conference championships, and I think there's going to be a lot of movement around, but I'm pretty certain that Alabama is going to just cement themselves the farther we go, and it's going to be an interesting month here. But that'll do it for today. Jonah will be back next week, and we'll do a normal, longer show. But yeah, make sure you watch sports. There's a lot going on right now. College basketball kicking off, college football winding down. So we're in a good spot here, and enjoy it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.